Your first album. This is amazing. It's going to be an incredible experience for you as an artist, as a musician. You're about to embark on a brand new journey in your life by recording and releasing your first album ever. My name is Kev Rowe. I'm a working singer-songwriter. I've done over 2,000 shows all over the country. I've got over 150 songs on Spotify, and right now I have 25,000 monthly listeners. So please check out my music when you get a chance. I have released 10 albums up until this point, and yes, the definition of an album is surely up for debate. So we should tackle that first. What is an album in the modern era? Well, I like to think that an album is a collection of songs, usually between, let's say, 12 and 15 songs, that is usually recorded in a certain time period and then released all together to the public as an artistic statement for who an artist is. And there's usually an underlying story, an arc to what the album represents. How about that? How about that for a definition? And the reason I say that is because, I want to go back to my very first album as an artist. This is called Brown Book. I released this in 2004. And the way that I recorded this album, well, first I wrote the songs, about, I think, 20 songs on my acoustic guitar in about a year. Well, it was probably more like 2 years, actually, to get those 20 songs. And then I just played them over and over again, kept working on my writing, did a handful of acoustic gigs. I want to say not that many, maybe 5 to 10 acoustic gigs, solo acoustic gigs. And then I booked studio time at my local studio where they had good, high quality vocal microphones, so condenser mics. And this is 2004, right? So this is a while ago. And it was ADAT. So anyone who doesn't know what an ADAT machine is, it's kind of like, I forget what the ADAT means, but it's analog to digital on a video cassette tape. So like the cassette tape that would go in your old VHS player to play movies. That's for a while, that's how we recorded music, on ADAT machines. So it was taking the analog of the VHS tape, but they were specific ADAT tapes. You couldn't take any VHS tape. This is probably a whole other video, education of the ADAT machine. But it was analog to digital. So in that process, you could take this VHS tape, convert it over into Pro Tools, and have the manipulation of digital. So it was edited, mixed, and mastered all digital, but the recording was on a analog VHS tape. Yes, that was a moment in history. There was about, I want to say, maybe 5 to 8 years when ADATs were really popular in the late 90s and early 2000s. Wow. That was before you had like your M-Box and you could go digital straight to your computer. Anyway, I recorded Brown Book, my first album, in 2 sessions with just my acoustic guitar and just my vocal. The whole idea of my first album was to go hardcore folk music, very traditional, and just be the guy with the acoustic guitar and the vocals. That was my whole thing. Just to document those 20 songs in the best way possible that I knew how, very simple and intimate. Eventually, 12 of those songs ended up on Brown Book, and that's what I released. And some of my popular songs now, like that I did with my band Big Like Emma, Eyes So Blue, that was on Brown Book, but I'm going off track here. Let's talk about today, your album. let's get back to your album. Because in today's modern era, there are lots of ways you can create an album. Really, the way that most people release an album today is to record 15 songs, release them as singles on Spotify once a month throughout the year, and then they release their album. So it's kind of like already been out in bits and pieces, not to mention short form content on TikTok and Instagram. So in comparison to how I made my first album, it's a whole different world now. But the reason I'm drawing the distinctions between these two processes is you still can record your album the way that I did back in 2004 with just an acoustic guitar and a vocal. And the question that I want to ask you with this first album is, what kind of artist do you want to become? That's what you need to really figure out with this first album. You need to see a vision for yourself 10 years, 20 years from now, and what your music means to the listener. And how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to spend your life as a musician? Do you want to spend it like I have with an acoustic guitar, singing songs to people, both in recording and live? Or are you like a producer type of guy? Do you love production and you want to release an album that's like all fully produced with electronic beats and synthesizers and big production elements? In this first album, you're defining who you are as an artist. Are you a heavy metal band and you've been working on your material for a year in the studio? What I would recommend there is go to your nearest pro studio that you can afford, hire the producer, and do the best quality version that you can with the budget that you can to record this album and then release it all at one time. This isn't a distribution video right here that we're talking about. Should you release singles versus an album? That's a whole different thing. I would say, yeah, you should release some singles to hype up this thing. But that's a different video. This is an artistic video. So what kind of artist do you want to become with this first album? Because what is going to happen is in the writing process and in the recording process and even the branding and distribution process of getting it out there and the promotion of it is major themes are going to emerge for you as an artist. And this is beautiful because these major themes in your work, in your art, are going to last you your entire career. That's why this is an important album for you. For me, going into Brown Book, one of the major themes that I had just ringing through my head for like probably 5 years before I recorded the album was intimacy. Just the word intimacy kept coming up over and over again in my writing, in my brain, in my what I wanted to bring to the general public through my art as an artist. And even still today, in my music on Spotify or on YouTube or Apple Music or wherever you listen to music, or even on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, one of my main themes as an artist is the word intimacy. And so many times I think to myself, oh man, yeah, that's a whole other topic. So many times I think to myself, my job is just to bring intimacy to the internet. Social media, everything needs to feel like it's like my best friend or my romantic lover or my long lost family member or my deceased relative that's who my listeners are. They're like very intimate, and the nature of my lyrics are very intimate. How did I get to that? Well, it's a long road. You figure out what your voice can pull off is a lot of it. And that's another one of the things that you're going to learn with this first album is what your tools, your God-given gifts and the skills that you've developed up until this point, what kind of themes you can pull off in the world the best, and what will resonate with the listener the best. And you can only do that through experimentation. The two aspects of experimentation that I went through as an artist back in the early 2000s were playing live gigs and recording and making CDs at that point. Of course, now you've got social media and it's a whole different world. You can do a lot more split testing as to what your message is as an artist. But eventually, all of those iterations on your content will help you learn your themes. And those themes should go directly into your first album, because that's where you get to really dive deep. So yeah, focus on those themes. Releasing your first album, man, it's groundbreaking stuff. I don't care if you spend $100 on it or if you spend, I don't know, $100,000 on it with a producer in Nashville. It's an important moment in an artist's life, and it's not to be taken lightly. The fact that we release so many singles these days ahead of the album, I don't really think that's that big of a deal, to be honest with you, because it's all figuring out what your message is as an artist, and then in generating attention and awareness for yourself as an artist. So by the time your diehard fans do actually dive into your first album, they have an idea what they're about to experience. So that would be equivalent to me playing at the local coffee shop to people back in the early 2000s. So I don't think singles takes away from your first album. Your first album is still very important. That arc, that story, what do you represent? Tell me. I want to hear the whole thing. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm going to be making a whole bunch more. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I'll see you later. Bye.